Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Circus of Safety, episode 5, coming to you live from Aotearoa, and super exciting. Not quite the glitz and glamour we're used to, gentlemen, is it? This ain't the National Health and Safety Leaders Summit anymore, is it? We're back to what we're, I guess, our grassroots, as they would say. How are you today, Andy?
Good. Yep. Been a bit busy this week.
Wow, I was going to say you look a little bit tired, mate. I mean,
Yep. I've done 3 full days work this week.
Oh, mate, are you classing today as a day of work?
Absolutely.
Well, it's not even. It's only just gone lunchtime, and I know you're finished for the day. So don't tell us you've done a full day's work today. You can't count today.
Wait, you know what time I started?
Oh, what? Yeah, come on, amuse us.
10.
Oh my God, Des, what time did you start this morning, mate?
I think it was 10 to 7, bright and early.
Wow, living the dream you are, Andy. Hey, mate, where about in the country are you coming to us from?
Down in Wanganui today.
Nice, beautiful Wanganui. What's it like this time of year?
It's nice, actually. It's a bit dark this morning, but even at 10 o'clock, and when I got up, and no, it's good. It's great. I had a great couple of days down here. Doing some great work with the team down here.
What about you, Des? How you been, mate?
Pretty good, but I'm not sure about this time slot. I'm feeling a bit of the post-lunch afternoon slump at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to be my usual perky self.
Oh, mate, we're going to miss you.
Lunch? I haven't had time for lunch.
Just finished breakfast, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, us working class, mate. 10 o'clock morning tea, 12 o'clock lunch, 3 o'clock afternoon tea on the dot, mate, on the dot. So we better get a wiggle on, right? Because I got afternoon tea coming up soon. Yeah, it's a bit like I guess we last time due to my commitments, we had to run the show at a different time slot, and that was in the afternoon too, I think, from memory. And then again, this public holiday tomorrow, Good Friday, for those of you that celebrate Easter tomorrow. So yeah, it's we thought we'd pull the show forward rather than cancel, I guess. So let's see how that goes. But hey guys, last week was it last week? Yeah, super exciting, right? The National Health and Safety Leaders Summit, thanks to Bright Star. Don't know about you guys. I had an absolute blast. Andy, what were your thoughts, mate? How did you feel it went?
Oh, fantastic. Had an absolutely great time. Met some amazing people, some great people, made some fantastic contacts, had some really good conversations with people.
You weren't actually doing anything else, were you?
I presented the whole second day.
You presented the whole second day.
I don't know. Why are you picking on me when Desai Link sat there? Let's pick on him.
Desai Link played an integral part in the success of that. That man was in more places than I can throw a stick at, and he was the link. He was literally the link between us and greatness. It was amazing. Des, I mean, what about you, mate? How did you find the 2 days last week at the National Health and Safety Leaders Summit?
I did enjoy it. I had the lucky privilege of listening to every speaker intensely to take notes, and I actually took a lot away from the talks. There was some really interesting stuff there.
No, fantastic, mate, and just definitely appreciated. Yeah, it was great. I thought it was a great team effort, right? And I know for me, one of the cool parts I really enjoyed was definitely the panels. I got to lead and facilitate, I guess, two of the panels, and those were really awesome. Some really cool technology, really getting the crowd involved. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And listen, to be fair, it's pretty awesome hanging out with you guys for 2 days. I mean, how cool was it, right? We had our own little stand, a little glitz and glamour. Networking afterwards, it was pretty cool. So
I think one feature we haven't mentioned yet, we had a bit of a spike in followers over those couple of days, and we're actually sitting at close to 950, I think.
Wow, who would have thought, right?
Wow,
yeah,
that's astounding.
So I mean that's significant, but probably not as significant as 1,000, right?
Oh, I would say 1,000 would be amazing.
So so I guess are we gonna do this? Are we gonna throw the challenge out there? Are we actually gonna throw this challenge to the public?
We might be speaking to the converted on this particular instance, but
Oh
I think
well,
it
hey,
might
but
be
they
worth
can
it.
they can they can share, they can like, they can pass on, right?
That's
So
true.
we're going to hit 1,000 followers, and we're hoping to do so this side of Christmas. Let's not set our ambitions too high, right?
Oh, brilliant.
and I guess we decided we'll put on a special show, bit of glitz and glamour. Andy's already thinking about the merch. Actually. Bloody hell, talking about merch, I actually had my hand on a mug. I actually had my hand on a mug. Where's it gone? I don't know. Somebody took it off me to give to a lucky follower, but them's the breaks, eh? Them's the breaks. Hey, Andy, how's young Oliver going, mate? What's he been up to? How's his training and his mentoring coming along?
He's thinking of resigning.
Oh, big call. I mean,
Yeah,
he's probably not getting quite the level of excitement. I mean, he's being mentored by a consultant, right? So it's not like there's a lot of action there for him, right?
Well, what it comes down to is he's identified 3 hazards recently.
Wow.
And he's reported these as he should, possibly above and beyond the role of a 9-year-old. And he's had no feedback and they haven't been corrected. So he's sat there thinking, why should I bother? And I'm finding it difficult to come back and say, well, play the long game, Oliver. Play the long game, save lives.
Wow. I mean, I know how it feels, right? I mean, I constantly put out ideas for the show and don't get any feedback. And tell him I sympathise.
I'll pass it on. That might make all the difference to him.
Yeah, and look at me. I'm still here, right? I'm still here. Season 2, episode 5.
Absolutely.
Soldiering on. Now, hey, listen, let's get a wiggle on. I know Andy's got to get a plane back, and we can't spend all day gas bagging. So, Des, do you want to hook us up with a disclaimer, mate, before we get into this?
Yeah, certainly. And so last fortnight we talked about passion and the provenance of the word passion being the ancient Greek word pathetikos.
We sure did.
And we don't often talk about provenance in the context of disclaiming. So I feel like we need to turn to the provenance experts, antiquarians. And as we all know, the best antiquarians are on Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, here we go.
So I've taken a page from their book and drafted today's disclaimer in the style of an Antiques Roadshow appraisal. And just bear with me, I'll get ourselves in the scene.
He sounds like he's an antique himself.
We are now in the village of Podcast in the Shire of Internet, and I'm now looking at a show that has a history of some 16 episodes. Of questionable provenance, its popularity is increasing in recent times. You can see that the arrangement of the item is that of a general nature only. We can only infer what the artist intended with this piece, as there are no specifics to guide us. If one were to rely on any of the nuances and gradations, one should seek specialist advice. Overall, I think it's a fascinating piece, a small token of safety podcast antiquity, truly one for the ages. Although free for download on most podcatchers, I think it should be insured for about £3.50. Been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Wow. £3.50. I
thought you were Australian.
Well, I don't know if he was being, whether it was what he was doing there. It sounded a bit like David Attenborough, really. Brilliant.
You're just giving me an idea.
Love your work, Des. Love your work as always. Okay, boys. Hey, are we ready for this?
Yeah, spin that wheel.
There's not a lot left, so it's going to be an exciting show. Here we go. Okay, here we go, and we are into it. Oh, look at the Eddie. Health and safety titles. Wow. Of all the topics, I mean, to be fair, we've got some pretty cool topics on there, and we've landed on this one. Wow. Anywho, I mean, Des, your initial thoughts, health and safety titles.
Well, it's a bit of a vexed question at the moment because there's really no consensus on what any of the titles mean. There's a general sense that a manager does some things and an advisor does other things, but we've got InchPo introducing titles as well of professional and practitioner, and it's all a little bit confused.
I hate to. I don't know why. You've just set them up. I have to ask them though, Andy. Your initial thoughts on the topic of health and safety titles.
So I assume we're talking about people within health and safety roles, really.
Yes, Andy.
That's what I was just wondering why we'd worded it as titles. It actually looked like something else that's a bit rude when I saw it when it first came up, but probably equally apt for many people that I work with. I agree with Des. It's ill-defined and it actually causes some problems and some confusion. And it would tie in quite nicely with a discussion about education pathways as well, which is, I know, is another subject on the wheel there in terms of training, but we don't really know what it is because we don't really know what health and safety is. I've said it.
Wow. Okay, there we go. It only took you 12 minutes, not even 12 minutes to drop in the need for. Hey, on a side note, I don't want to throw you under the bus here or make you look silly or anything, or point out the fact that consultants actually don't do anything. Just want to check, how's the dictionary coming along?
Slowly.
Thank God you're not charging us by the hour. Okay. So, I mean, health and safety, yeah, I guess I'm going to take a slightly different slant on this. I think health and safety titles have opportunity here, and I think it's a missed opportunity to actually help us understand and what we should be doing or what the individual within that organization should be doing. I do, yeah, I definitely think there's an opportunity here if we get the titles correct. It will provide a summary, I guess, effectively of guidance around not only what we should be doing for the business. So I don't think won't only give the business a bit of guidance around the sort of things that we should or shouldn't be doing, but I also feel that it will potentially give the individual with said title an opportunity to actually understand what it is that they should be doing or how they should be operating. I mean, Andy, sticking with you, I guess when we start talking about health and safety titles, this will be interesting. I'll take some notes. I'll scribble some notes, but I mean, so talk slowly because I'm not the fastest. But I mean, let's start thinking about what are the different health and safety titles that you've come across.
Advisor.
Yep.
Senior advisor.
Yep.
Manager.
Yep.
Group manager.
Manager. Oh, group manager. Okay. Yeah.
Coordinator.
Wow. Yep.
Administrator. Officer.
Coordinator. I'm not doing very well in spelling. Good thing no one's in my notes. Administrator. Yep. What was that? Officer. Yep.
Yep,
what about you, Des? I mean, have any more for you? Have you come across any other titles that you thought?
Yeah, business partner, general manager,
yes.
Director.
Yes, business partner,
and maybe like a C-suite, like a chief safety officer or something to that effect.
General manager, director of safety. Yep. Cool. Yeah. And what was that last one? Sorry, mate.
Like a chief safety officer, something like that.
Chief safety officer. Yep. Cool. Well, okay. Well, there we go. Off the bat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 titles, right? 11
what about health and safety rep? So would that belong in there or not? Was that a slightly different thing?
Okay. Well, I guess that's a fascinating thing, right? I mean, a lot of these titles that we've just been talking about, I guess, relate. I don't know, in my mind, rightly or wrongly, to people that are paid whose primary function is that of a health and safety person, right? Not taken away from the value that a HSR provides, but generally that's all wrapped up in their day-to-day role, right?
Yep.
So I mean, we can put that out to the side there, but let's kind of go with that for now. Des, you mentioned INCHPO, obviously close to my heart, but also introducing the concept of professional and practitioner, right? And I guess that's that might be a higher sort of these position titles potentially a subset of that, right? So there we go. We're into the double digits for sure. Andy, do you know what any of these things actually mean? I mean,
not really.
What's an advisor? I mean, what is an advisor? What is a manager?
So it depends. Yeah, it depends on the organisation very much, and this causes so many problems. So my understanding is an administrator is effectively your entry level, but it's not really, because an administrator is just an administrator happening to be doing safety. So they don't really need any safety knowledge. They're just effectively looking after the system.
Yep.
Then they do a good job, so they get promoted to be an advisor. Then they may become a senior advisor, and then it might be a manager. But then sometimes they go to coordinator in there as well. And some organisations, the coordinator sits between an advisor and the administrator. But sometimes the coordinator is a separate role that sits outside. So you might have advisors and a coordinator. It's really, really messy. And what I find with a lot of the students that I teach is that want careers in this field is that when they're trying to look for a job, it becomes very, very difficult. So they may be an advisor and they want to become a senior advisor, so they've got to go to a different business. But the senior advisor role in the other business might be almost exactly the same as their advisor role in the current business, or could even be lower. And there's no link to the salaries either. I mean, I know advisors that are on significantly more than some managers that I know.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean,
Des, really good.
What are your thoughts? What are your understandings of these different titles?
My thoughts mirror Andy's in terms of the sort of hierarchy that you tend to see, and I've attributed my own meaning to those titles that sort of serve my purposes, but I don't have anything to back that up. So I would say that an admin is just an administrator that happens to administer safety data and information, and then a coordinator is someone who is working towards being an advisor but is not yet formally qualified. So that's a distinction that I make, that if you're giving advice, the advice needs to be based on something. So once you have that formal qualification, then you become an advisor. And then once you've got years of experience under your belt, you might become a senior advisor or a business partner. And then at some point, when you're managing people, you would become a manager.
So I guess that's an interesting way to look at it, though, right? Looking at it from a hierarchical point of view, and again, that creates a whole bunch of complexities. I guess, like Andy said, there's been a number of people he's come across where their salary doesn't necessarily reflect the title, if we're looking at it as a hierarchical type structure. And I think it's interesting too, and I know it's in my mind, but I'm pretty confident I've seen it in some models where actually the coordinator, if we're looking at it from a hierarchical structure, sits above the advisor, which then is a really fascinating concept. I mean, and I guess it's not taken away from, and I think we need to be clear. I mean, I don't know, on my behalf, I don't know about you two, you possibly have a different thought, but not taken away from the value or the importance of each of these roles, right? They all play an incredible role in their function. And if they do their function well, everyone from the administrator to the coordinator to the advisor, the senior advisor, the business partner, all those roles, depending on how big your organization is, kind of really, play, if they're all doing their role and all contributing, can play a huge, make it a huge success, right? So it's not taken away from that. But then when organizations start to employ people, what are they employing, I guess? And that's where, is that where you guys are suggesting maybe there's a bit of confusion here? So maybe a little bit easier when there's a large organization. So Des, if we think about your organization for a minute, you've got a number of people within the safety function. You've got yourself. So do you want to maybe walk us through your hierarchy at the moment?
Well, it's much what I just described. Coordinator. At some point in the past, I had an administrator, but it's coordinator, advisor, senior advisor, manager.
Yeah.
And
so
interestingly,
that's right.
the position description for the senior advisor, advisor, and coordinator is actually identical. They're just held to different standards.
Whoa, okay. Now we're going down a whole different rabbit hole. Andy, I saw you take a breath there. Do you wish to exhale?
That's cool. I like that concept. I really do. I like that because safety. If we define things clearly, safety is finite, right? There's only so much that safety is. Whatever we haven't defined what it is, but if we do, it's finite. So therefore,
well, how do we know when we haven't defined it?
Well, yeah, but I think it's a finite subject at some point.
Well, now we're making assumptions, aren't we? I mean,
Yeah,
is this how you operate your consultancy?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Just throwing out assumptions. Here we go.
What's interesting about that approach, and I like to try and work things through. So, if you think of a hazard or a control in particular, and then apply that to what you would expect each person at each level of their to do in relation to that hazard or control, I find that's quite a useful exercise to do with organizations. So, for example, if there's if the control was, say the hazard was a chainsaw, and the control was the chain brake device on it, what would the role of each individual within the safety management team link to that chainsaw? So what would you expect a safety manager to know or do in relation to a chainsaw and the chain brake?
Are you actually asking that question?
No, I'll throw it out there. What would you expect an advisor to do in relation to that? And what would you expect the administrator to do in relation to that? And I think by anchoring these roles related to actual hazard management is quite a useful exercise, and it does clarify some stuff, I think.
I don't disagree with that concept, surprisingly. Do you think you could, would you, just talking this through for somebody that maybe is in this position where they're looking to, I don't know, structure a team or restructure a team, or they're currently looking at looking at their team. Do you think, Indy, it would be worth, if you went down this road, and I don't know if you've just been making this up on the spot, like when you charge people, but do you think it should be linked to specific hazards within their organisation, or do you feel you could take quite a general approach to that? So
I think you could take a general approach, but a useful starting point would be to start with an individual hazard or control, and just to see what that actually looks like, and then build. Then you could build position descriptions and tasks out of that.
Yeah. And I guess the uniqueness here, and I guess maybe jumping through to you, Andy, I mean, we've spoken about Des's hierarchy within his organisation. Obviously, his employer, incredibly well supported. So he's got a really cool, he's had the opportunity to structure a team.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're starting to go down that road, it will also probably determine, when you're looking at it from that angle, the size of your team, right?
Absolutely. And a key question there is, how much responsibility are you giving to your operational team? Because we don't want to end up siloing safety as only the safety department's team, which has happened in organizations. We want the safety team really to be enablers, to be empowering and advising the operational team, the operational managers, to do safety. We want people working safely.
Yep.
And the size of the team should reflect that. But what I've seen in organizations is safety teams become self-creating, self-growing. They create work for themselves. And that becomes problematic.
Does it? And this is I guess a bit of contradiction around why do we even have and Des, I'd be fascinated on your thoughts, because we obviously work in very similar, or we work in the same industry, right? And is that because really, I mean, it is by, I guess, giving it a title, specifically when you start going health and safety advisor, right, or health and safety senior advisor, or whatever, and you start throwing the word health and safety in it. I mean, you've said it, Andy. Health and safety is it's finite, right? There's only so much to it. So I guess do we realize that when we start getting into it and actually realize, well, listen, if all I did was safety, there actually isn't a lot for me to do here if we're empowering the business and the business is doing it. So is that why maybe we start going down rabbit holes and we start actually getting more into general business advising? I mean, Des, what are your thoughts?
I think you've really hit on something there. Is that maybe there's a lot of safety people out there that go down these rabbit holes and keep themselves busy, thinking that they're doing everything reasonably practicable and adding value to the business, and maybe it's not. I certainly don't think it is. But interestingly, I just want to point out that in a previous role, the team structure was quite different, and we had a manager and then about 8 or 9 advisors. It was quite a large team, but each advisor had a different specialty. So one was sort of an auditing specialty, another one was a food safety specialty, another one was a training specialty, and so on and so forth. And that was actually, for that organization, that worked really well. And in contrast, my organization now has a very different structure, as I explained, and that works really well for us. And maybe it's a good thing that that's not a settled question, and that people have the flexibility to have whatever title is necessary that they feel they need, and to have any structure that they feel they need to suit their business.
Yeah, and I'm just I was just pondering some of the other roles that I've been in, where I've been part of a team, and probably reflect your description there, Des, where I've been in a team where there are actually, and this is based on the size of the business, where there are different managers, in fact, which looked after different parts of the business and supported those parts of the business. And then underneath that, there were advisors who advised subsets of that business along those lines. Again, another organization, we had an overall manager and then a number of advisors, and we advised effectively on very specific contracts that the organization held. So I guess there's a number of ways there, but I guess I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, and Andy specifically, I guess at the moment around this though. So don't disagree with the fact that I think maybe the way you structure a health and safety team, the titles you give them, what you define as their role and their description. I don't disagree with the fact that it should be really fit for purpose and fit for that organization. But I mean, Andy, you kind of start to touch on it. What are you seeing though when people are coming to you on your courses and they're like, mate, I'm looking for career development. I don't know whether I need to be an advisor, a senior advisor, a business partner, a manager, a coordinator. I mean, how does, by going down this customizable approach, which yes is good for business, but is possibly confusing for individuals? Thoughts?
Yep, I would agree. And I had this very conversation this last week with a student who's currently doing the NEBOSH diploma, and he's finding it a challenge, as any normal person would. And some of the conversations we've had about, he's like, should I continue with it? Should I look at something else? I said, well, I teach an alternative diploma, which is New Zealand diploma at EMA, that you've done, Brenton. And and he said, well, what should I have done that one? I said, it depends on what pathway you want, because those two courses are poles apart, yet they're both safety courses. The NEBOSH diploma is very much about technical safety, hazards, managing hazards, that sort of stuff. The New Zealand diploma is very much about the management of safety. So it's about applying safety it's really a management course with a safety spin on it. And depending on where you want to go, is the course suitable for where you want to be? And people are very bad at deciding and telling you what they want the outcome to be.
I just got to remember something I had to come back to later. That's why I've got a notebook here. I mean, these though, kind of with that same kind of concern in mind around if we start getting too customizable and an advisor in your business isn't an advisor in another business, which is not an advisor in a different business. I mean, are you concerned as a manager that you are potentially missing out on finding good candidates for positions? Do you think it's going to influence? So I see a role, I go, it's a health and safety advisor role or whatever, and I think, that's not for me or the like. I mean, are you worried about this confusion, reducing the number of suitable applicants for positions?
Potentially, I think that's probably going to be a challenge anyway, because it's always hard. It's a very challenging thing to have to recruit someone and determine after 2 1-hour interviews that they're going to be a good fit for the role and a fit for the organization. So I think that's going to be a challenge, irrespective of the confusion around titles and requirements for a role. But I think in terms of, irrespective of what they're called, you should be able to get a sense of what they've been able to, or what they've been doing in previous roles based on their achievements from that role.
Oh, for sure. I think but that's going down the road that somebody has seen your advertisement for X title and has actually made the decision to apply for it. I guess my question really is around, do you think that maybe you're not getting the number of applicants for a role because maybe what they assume is an advisor role versus what you believe is an advisor role maybe don't align, and maybe they think it's below them. Maybe they think they're more of a senior advisor, but you know what I mean? Do you think you'd be worried that maybe you weren't actually getting the CVs in the inbox based on confusion around health and safety titles?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair point. That could happen, and I can imagine me doing that as well if I were looking for another job, and I would probably skip over anything that said advisor.
Yeah,
I would consider that a step down.
And that's a fascinating thing, right? Because I've spoken to a number. I was talking to somebody at the National Health and Safety Leaders Summit, actually, thanks to Brightstar. See, I'm still getting free plugs out of us. This is amazing. I hope Brightstar are watching. Thank you, Brightstar. And their role was health and safety advisor, right? But she was in a sole charge role. She was the only person in that organization. Now, which is fascinating, right? Like, in my mind, that's not an advisor. That's and that's just my mind. Whether that's right, wrong, or otherwise, and I probably haven't really had time to digest that because we don't make these shows up. This is as it happens, as it's live. But quite deceiving, right? If we went with a hierarchical approach to health and safety titles, that you got an advisor, but that person is the only source of advice to those officers within that organization. Andy, I mean, you must see that all the time, right? Working for organizations.
Yeah, I think it does matter. The titles do matter a little bit. So as a health and safety manager, what actually are they managing? Have they got that title because they're managing other people with health and safety in their role? Or are they actually managing health and safety within the organization? Because those two things are quite different. And they're poles apart. They're absolutely poles apart. And I think a good example would be, there's a client that I'm working with at the moment. They've got nobody in their organization with safety in their title, and got a really good culture. One of the questions that was asked when they engaged me was, should we just employ a safety advisor and a safety consultant and a safety manager? And I said, well, just maybe, but let's just back up the bus and let's look at your culture of your organization, look at your system. And can we actually just empower your current structure to do safety? Because they're pretty much doing it anyway. They just haven't got this detailed system behind it. Because we could easily create a safety bureaucracy there by employing safety people. So at the moment, we haven't employed anybody with safety in the title yet. We possibly will at some point, but we need to really understand what that role would look like moving forwards, because they've got quite a nice structure in terms of team leaders, supervisors. They've got quite a stable workforce. So there's lots of positivities there. By bringing in a safety team, you could easily make it more dangerous.
Exactly. I can't believe I'm agreeing with you here. And I guess this is the change. And you raised a good point. And I was talking with Paul Robertson, currently the General Manager of Health, Safety and Wellbeing at Auckland Council, during the National Health and Safety Leaders Summit. And we were having a panel discussion, and that's kind of where we went down the road of, right? Like, if you are a manager and we're looking at future development and opportunities, depending on what you're managing, depends on what your training and your skill set should be. So if you are managing the safety system, it's not enough to just be a safety professional, right? You've got to know about business acumen, you've got to know about planning, you've got to know about all these other things that are going on. So it raises a fascinating thing there. And then again, is the profession in its own right, and heaven forbid I use a term out of context, is the profession itself creating safety clutter by having this whole profession called health and safety professionals? Considering you, Andy Evans, stated, and I categorically say this, that safety is finite, right? And there is, like, if you think about it, how much work is there really for us to do solely focused on safety?
I absolutely agree. It's a great little term I've used that.
Yeah, wow. We might have to put that in the dictionary, mate.
Put it on the wheel. Put it on the wheel.
I mean, there's
what
are you know, you're a seasoned safety professional, and we haven't got onto the topic of the INSPO practitioner versus professional, and I don't know if we're going to have time to go down that road, right? But I mean, what would you do if your directors walked in and said, you know what, we listened to the podcast today, we think that guy Andy is onto something. You'd probably choke on your coffee, I get that. And they said to you, safety is only finite. We don't actually quite know what you're doing. You're no longer the health and safety. I know your title's not exactly health and safety manager, but you're not the health and safety manager anymore. You don't have a health and safety team. You've got a business operational support team. I mean, what would your thoughts be to that?
I'd be all for it if that suited the organization. Then that's, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
And that's the situation I currently find myself in, right? So initially employed as the health, safety and environment manager, the business saw the business need, to Des's point, and saw business need at the time and an opportunity they saw to move me into a general manager of operations role, right? Where I get the ability to influence across the entire business and intertwine and provide guidance across the whole business. Because I think, as we can all agree, safety is not just one thing, right? It's attached to everything we do, right? I guess kind of moving along, we could obviously rabbit on for days, but Andy, health and safety titles, I mean, your thoughts, do they have a place in Safetyville? Yes or no?
Yes, they do. They do.
Des, your thoughts, do safety titles have a place in Safetyville?
Yeah, I think the answer to that's pretty obvious. They have to have a place. You need a title. You need a job title.
Yeah.
To me,
right.
the key issue is probably where those titles marry up with what the industry considers to be that role.
Nice. No, I love it. I mean, sticking with you, Des, I mean, I guess you started to highlight some of the pros around that. But I guess thinking then, where do you see the traps in titles in relation to health and safety?
Well, there's a pretty glaring trap for me, and that's that every organization is different. So a manager in one organization that's small will have a radically different role to a manager in an organization that's large, and there's everything in between. So it's really a hard thing to define and pin down because each organization is just so different.
And that's definitely a great call. I think that's definitely going to be a trap for not only the organisation, right, but both internally, but also externally when advertising for roles and trying to get the right people for the right job, right? Yeah. Andy, your thoughts? What are the pros? What are the cons? Yep.
I think we need some. There needs to be some titles for some clarity, but again, it's got to be quite clearly defined, and the purpose has got to be fit for purpose. It's got to work in the organisational context, but that makes it difficult to train people for.
No, fair. Yeah, no. Might do you out of work there, Andy. Hey, just jumping over to Sarah Tizard on the chat there. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you listening. Hope your employer doesn't mind during work hours. Just jumping up there, she stated, I don't think your title matters as long as you are not excluded from an opportunity due to previous role titles over experience and previous work exposure. And that's, again, that is a concern, right? And I guess that's a call out to people that really make sure that you clearly articulate what you've been doing versus the title you've been given, right? Such as AI filtering on resumes, and in an area such as safety, that may be a real issue. And again, a brilliant point for lazy people like me, where we just chuck everything through AI and go, I'm looking for people with managers experience, as an example, and it would spit a whole bunch of people out of the chute, which may well have been perfect for the role that I'm trying to fulfill, right? So beautiful summary there, Sarah. Great work. Andy, just as we kind of bring the show to a bit of a close, nice, short, sharp, and sweet one before we go off to a long holiday. I mean, what are your final thoughts on the topic of health and safety titles?
I'm still not sure about how it fits, to be fair honest with you. I think Inchpo gave it a good nudge, but I'm not sure if that's the answer.
But a question for you on that, though, is an answer better, and I'm not saying it's a perfect answer, but is an answer better than no answer at all?
Sometimes, and I'm not sure if it is in this case.
Mate, you got to stop sitting on the fence. Do
No,
you know
I think
do you know what happens to people that fall off a fence? It hurts, mate. It hurts.
I think it's worth putting the Inchpo guidance on the wheel. I reckon it's worth us having actually a full discussion about that.
Wow, I might know some people that
as a document. I really like the documents, but I think it would be interesting to talk about because a lot of people don't know that it exists.
No, I can't.
If we could raise the profile of it and build the engagement, I think that would be a great thing.
And maybe we could get a special host on because I happen to know a few people that know a lot about that document. Cool. Des, your wrap up. I think Andy's kind of cutting himself out of the show, so we might finish with just the two of us, mate.
I got to go now, guys.
I can say that it does matter because I noticed a massive difference in how people engaged with me when I had a manager title compared to when I was an advisor. There's a big difference.
Yeah, it's it does it, and it raises a fascinating. It's about perception, right? So there's the health and safety manager versus there's the health and safety advisor, and as we've spoken about, the title could be very different and have very depending on the context of which they're given, right?
Yeah, it's all about perception, I guess, in that sense, how it's perceived by others.
Very much. Hey, well, unfortunately, just for those that have just tuned in and wondering why there's only two of us, well, firstly, you've missed the entire show. So where the hell have you been? I don't know. But secondly, Andy's been kicked out of the room that he was using to dial in from and is racing off to catch a plane home to his family for the long weekend. But hey, Des, anything exciting for you for the long weekend, mate?
Not really. Just staying in town. And it should be pretty quiet because normally everyone heads out of town. So that should be pretty nice, actually.
And I'll be one of those people heading out of town, mate. I'll be heading up North Camping, joining the car park as we try to get out of Tamaki Makaurau. It'll be awesome. Hey, smart tip here. I'm only leaving tomorrow morning. So hopefully, mid-morning. So hopefully everyone's gapped it by then. So fingers crossed.
Know any good podcasts to listen to in the car while you parked up on the motorway?
I do, but the family might not appreciate listening to my voice for the entire drive up there. Hey, listen, just want to make a shout out. Like the boys mentioned, we've had a real spike in followers, and listen, to be fair, we are incredibly flattered, overwhelmed, in fact, by the support, and really value the fact that people take the time to like the page, take the time to tune in, and we just want to say thank you. In particular, this week, this is a connection of mine, actually, boys, and I didn't actually ask them to connect, so that's awesome. Just want to say a big shout out to Ryan Pope. Thanks for joining, Ryan. Big shout out to you, mate. Quality and Improvements Manager at Traillight. So I think Derek Toner called us out, Des, at the Health and Safety Leaders Summit and said that we don't have frontline leaders listening to our show. Well, at least there's one, I would imagine. Thanks to Brian for being one of our first frontline leaders joining the podcast. So there we go. Brian is, like I said, the Quality Improvements Manager for a company based out of Pukekohe, close to Andy's home, actually, called Trail Lights. So great to see the initiative being shown there by Ryan and jumping on the show. So yeah, absolutely fascinating. Cool, Des. Well, I guess that's
it,
us,
eh?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
What a pleasant way to end the show without Andy. Great. Hey, mate. Well, listen, you have a great weekend. I'll have a great weekend. All of you out there have a great weekend. And we will no doubt catch you soon.
Thanks, Brent. See you soon.